Thanks for joining us on Next Level Up. Our guest today is Karl Andersen. He is the founder and CEO of Lektra, a company that's turning rooftops into revenue and decentralizing AI infrastructure from the ground up. He started his career trading morality risk on Wall Street before launching multiple ventures across structured finance, reinsurance, and energy tech. Now he's combining those disciplines to build what we might just be calling Grid 2.0. In this episode, we unpack his journey from Nordic renewables to U.S. national security risks and why sunshine to data isn't just a tagline, but a turning point. Karl, great to have you with us.
Thanks, man. Thanks for having me.
Yeah. So let's rewind to your origin story. What were the early chapters that shaped this journey?
I've been in finance like pretty much my whole life. I thought that was the path to riches, I suppose, when I was, just getting out of college. I never understood what a trading floor was. And a friend of mine, when I was living in Denmark, said, I thought maybe I'd actually be a lawyer or something like that. But he took me down to Danske Bank, to the trading platform. And I saw a bunch of people yelling and screaming. And I couldn't believe that this is what you could do for work. And I was like, sign me up, So, from there started a broker dealer, which was more of a commodities FX type shop. We sold that, and I moved to New York 16 years ago. But I started an insurance-linked securities fund, not trading morality. It's mortality risk.
Mortality. Sorry.
There is no morality, I think, on Wall Street. Maybe a little bit. We don't know. But anyways, but moved down, to New York City. I was bought out from that fund, started a reinsurance company with my brother hedging public pension liabilities, and that was linked to longevity risk. People were outliving their life expectancy, so the liabilities were ballooning. And then I was bought out from that. Oh, go ahead.
When the annuity tables don't work anymore, insurance companies get real antsy.
I mean, there's a separate podcast for that, honestly.
Yeah.
The state of Rhode Island, Illinois, they're ticking time bombs, honestly, for public liabilities. But anyways, and then was brought up from that. And then, given my name, always had a link to Norway, joined the Norwegian American Chamber of Commerce years ago. And, as time moved on, sort of the electrification or the green transition started coming in. And Norway was way ahead in the market when it comes to this. 98% of their domestic consumption is hydroelectricity, et cetera. Anyways, they were producing a lot of tech companies and coming over to the United States. I started helping one by one and then said, look, to capitalize on this, let's put together a fund and invest over there. So I did. And the investment thesis was really on distributed energy generation. So, the solar energy management systems, battery systems, hydro, wind applications, et cetera. And it started making a lot of sense because what happened in Norway is they electrified so fast that, for example, 92% of the cars sold last year were all electric vehicles. That's great, but now they have to quadruple the size of their grid in the next 10 years. So we started looking at that being like, okay, this is a problem, not just in Norway, whereas actually they have a pretty sophisticated grid. It's a digitized grid, they're pretty, it's a smaller market. They're very responsive to it. But we started looking at places like the United States and global grid systems, and oh my God, we realized we're in trouble. Yeah, pretty much everything.
Yeah, it was like the starting point of how fragile our grid is, right?
Yeah, I mean, if you look at it, it was built in the 1960s. Basically, all of these, utility grid operators are monopolies. The pricing for everybody is atrocious. PJM is having a terrible time right now. Demand is through the roof. Data centers, there's so much demand for energy. And that tracks because since the invention of the light bulb, people have been consuming more and more energy to the point where, one of my colleagues on my team at Lektra, he left Karl Andersen. They had been planning on rolling brownouts and blackouts in Manhattan starting 2029, 2030. That's without the data center growth. So anyways, real problem.
No, I mean, we have a bill right now. I'm in West Virginia, and they're trying to carve a massive transmission line between, Ohio through PA, through us, through Maryland. So, and it's all to your point, the data centers in Reston and around that area. So crazy times, Brent.
As you look deeper into it, it's almost an impossibility because when you look at the actual manufacturing of things like transformers and the components and parts for distribution,
Yeah.
there's no way they're going to be able to supply it. The grid's supposed to grow by 22%. That's a conservative view. Eric Schmidt thinks it's going to be like 100% that we have to grow. That's why they're investing in like nuclear, like, you know, refiring up 3 Mile Island and all these like,
Yeah.
you know, so everybody knows it's an issue. And so that's a problem. You know, being an entrepreneur, I've had, you know, several companies, as you can see. Now, as I've gotten a little bit older, I like tackling real big problems, because that's where the solutions are. And, you know, if we can be service to solving these problems, then you make money, I think, out of doing that. So, you know, but the first things first, you know, you start getting older in the world and you want to do right by society. And, you know, I feel like, you know, just really quick, one of the things I found out was, you know, I've been working with the National Grid Resilience Commission. It's chaired by General Wesley Clark and Daryl Issa. And they were saying that 42,000 known terrorists have come across the border in the last 3 years. It takes 9 substations to knock out the entire grid. And the US military runs 90% off the public grid system. So talk about the Achilles heel for national security. You know, we went from like, oh, it will be nice by 2050 if everyone gets green, to like, holy Christ, this is a national
Actual security risk.
imperative. Yeah. So
Yeah, really. Well, I mean, that's a little sobering. And
yeah.
you feel like that's where you know, was there any, to your point about morality on Wall Street, is there any collision regarding both climate, energy, you know, and now you're adding national security to that list?
I think the whole conversation is the dumbest conversation I've ever heard in my life. I don't even know how we got here, to be honest with you. Photons coming from the sun, going through silicon, are not political beings. You know, solar panels are a technology that have advanced tremendously since the 1970s. And so, you know, think about your solar power calculator. Yeah, it's great. You're sitting there, turn it on, it works. And now think about that at scale. And so the issue, if you think about it from an engineering perspective, grid systems have to transport those electrons, and you lose a ton of energy transporting them along those wires. Oil and gas, look, and I have nothing against any of these energy resources. Let's look at it just objectively. I mean, Norway is also a huge oil country, so there's no animosity. This is you know, where I want to take you, but even in oil and gas, distribution, drilling, it's expensive. Now it's about $50 a barrel to drill.
Yeah.
And that's the price point people are working with. It's going to have to be subsidized for consumers in order for it to stay at these levels that people think they're at. So the nice part about solar and distributed energy generation, that could be LNG too. Okay, so I'm not going to, you know, but then it's at location. There's no distribution of it. So a house with solar and batteries now takes off so much pressure from the grid system. You don't have to worry about as much transmission. So and the way we think about Grid 2.0 is it's almost having its internet moment, whereas the internet used to be all these subsea cables, and well, still is, it's the backbone of the internet. Then you got all the fiber optics to fill in the gaps. It's a similar thing that's happening in the electrical world, where you need all these microgrids and you need all these community batteries, solar, to fill in a resilience and a redundancy in the system. So like, think about it as just another technology on a spectrum of technologies: oil and gas, utility, grid, infrastructure, and then, you know, distributed generation. So it's all part of the same thing. And I think in the backdrop of like, if we're trying to compete against the Chinese, for example, in this AI race to AI supremacy, you need as much energy and compute as you can to win. So in the political, what I'm saying is back to the politics of it. It makes absolutely no sense for this to be a left-right issue. All energy should be treated the same. It's a national security imperative, and we should just make a comprehensive energy program and policy that encourages all this production, in my opinion.
I'm with you, man. It isn't. It's what we need, right? I mean, it's just right up there, almost with water. Like, yes, we'll die in 3 days without water, but we wouldn't live very long without power.
30 days, a third of the population's gone. After a year, the entire population. Those are military studies.
Wow.
So
Yeah,
it's
so
super
talk to me about Lektra. So what exactly are you building? And whoops,
so
I think my internet just died.
The solution is really thinking about this again in a distributed context. And so, you know, whereas hyperscale data centers require sort of huge power plants, the way we thought about it, and actually the trajectory is to continue to build even bigger power plants with nuclear, stuff like that. We thought about it in a reverse way. Why not go into a distributed format where all these distributed energy assets like solar can be leveraged? And so solar owners, when you think about it, they're selling back to the grid at like 6 cents a kilowatt hour. They're buying at 20, selling back at 6. We know it's a monopoly. So for a long time, we were like trying to figure out how they could make more money, out of selling their excess electricity. So we were doing charging stations at the beginning, high frequency trading with the grid, but that was still interactive with the grid. And then we started adding GPUs to our energy management systems, and we realized, oh, wait a second, we can sell the excess GPUs to cloud companies because clouds always are renting the GPUs. Then we're like, why not build our own cloud company? It's just as easy. So what we did is we built Lektra Cloud, and then it's powered by all these distributed nodes. So now we can leverage all these homes. We've signed contracts with some of the largest solar distributors in the country to get out millions of nodes to customers, CNI or industrial scale partners. Like 500,000 CNI, customers that we can put those GPUs in with. And that's just to start. Europe has 17 million homes and even more CNI installations. Now, just to give you a point of reference, Meta is like 350,000 GPUs. DeepSeek's 50,000 GPUs. So we have the ability to scale. And what this does is it creates a resilience and redundancy within the market. So, hyperscale data center is very vulnerable in terms of its power cuts, in terms of, we were talking about threats to, grids. Threats to data centers as national security may also become a real big issue in the future. I can fly my Chinese spy balloon over, oh, there's a hyperscale data center, I'm going to drop my bomb on it. When you have a distributed data center, actually now you can't get lock on where that data center is. So it's more protective. And also if you have, like, let's say Washington State gets an attack, the data center doesn't go down because it's all over the country to be redistributed. So
you lose a little bit, who cares if you lose 4% of production, you still got 96% network up and running.
No,
and
exactly.
That's really looking at it's, I think we talked about it's cheaper to move data than electrons, right? Like
exactly.
And we have the infrastructure, to your point, much more laid out to support that than we do to try and build. I can't remember what the one Meta one is that they're trying to go to Louisiana or something, and it's going to take four times the Manhattan or something like that. Like I'm like yeah, that doesn't the problem. Everything.
Well, the other thing is, and you brought up water. I mean, each one of these data centers drinks about 1 million gallons a day. I mean, whatever you think about that. I mean, for agriculture, for a local community, that's pretty taxing. I know we need the data. I know we need the data centers built, but how do we solve that problem? And I know people are working on it from an engineering perspective, the air cooling, liquid cooling of different kinds. And I think eventually we will be able to solve that from an engineering point of view, I hope. But for now, it's just like, let's just build like, we'll kick those problems down the road. With us, we don't have any of those problems. We don't have any of that heavy infrastructure issue into Lektra. But the other thing is that what I really want for consumers is I really want people to make money out of this. For the longest time, you used to be able to drill oil in your backyard, and hey, if you struck it rich. Now you can put a couple solar panels on your roof. Now you can actually be a merchant and a player in the energy economy. That is so different. We have shared economies for transportation. We have shared economies for all different things. Energy has never had its moment in the sun because no one's figured out a way for people to make money. Now, once you think about energy as an asset, once you can actually sell it, utilize it, build in your own backyard or you're on your land, and now you can power not only you, but your neighbors, you can sell it to other things. Well, that opens a whole new can of worms in terms of markets. So we're excited about that. And then also Lektra is an AI PC. So the other concern we have is the consolidation of AI in a few hands. You got Grok, you've got OpenAI. What happens to the small guy again? We saw this with social media. We became the product, not the other way around. And I think in data right now, we have a chance for people to own their own AI PCs, to keep their own digital wallets, to then sell our data back to them and monetize that data. That is where we can make a bunch of millionaires, maybe not a trillionaire. The money can come back to sort of the middle class and give people fighting shot at earning income. So, Energy independence is a big theme for us. AI independence is a big theme for us. We're kids of the 80s. We grew up with Nintendo. We want everyone to be messing around with the machine, adding different types of GPUs, TPUs, DPUs, different types of cards, processing, and inventing the next generation of energy as an asset. So that's
Yeah,
also
it's really great.
ethos of the company.
I love how you're not only flipping the economics for the homeowners away completely from the, I mean, not completely from the businesses, because obviously they've got deep pockets to do their own investments, et cetera, but you're bringing it back to the home. And to your point, you're pointing towards bringing innovation back, because that's one of the things, again, back to the politics and opinion. I'll add mine is,
Yeah.
somewhere we lost that, right? That used to be our secret power, or our superpower. And I love the fact that this will bring that back, and American dream can go to the next generation instead of, us being 20th in the world again on some other chart.
Well, where Americans accelerate, and I think it's hands down, everyone would agree with this, is that we've got the best entrepreneurs in the country. And people risk a lot and they get rewarded a lot. And that's a very capitalistic ethos that we've had for since the beginning of the country. And
Yeah.
so that's one thing I think a China and a top-down government couldn't beat us on, is are they going to trust their population to have distributed AI and monkey around and build the next generation of cool stuff? Probably not. And so, that's where I think America can excel. Can it be exploited? Yeah, that is also our vulnerability. But I think when on balance, I'm going to bet on my society and a distribution of power, and that race always wins. I mean, even think about it, like whatever you think about the whole COVID thing, still it amazes me that like Pfizer and these companies came up with real vaccinations that fast. I mean,
Yeah.
we put together our resources, we moved heaven and earth, and we made it happen. So, but I like it here because I think if the next AI revolution, if the ground layer can be harnessed by people themselves, that's going to give the next generation of tools and products. That's going to include so many more innovations and so many more marketplaces, instead of just having a chat GTP or something like that. There's so much innovation that can happen that we aren't even thinking about yet.
Yeah.
But give that kid an AI PC, give him a couple chips, and let's see what he can do.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's really I'm going to say this wrong. The democratization, however you say that. There's a word that I'm
Yeah,
butchering in my
democratization.
pronunciation. Point is, giving that to everybody. Like I really think this is true. Over time, countries will cease to exist. Right? It's the same thing with Bitcoin, and I mean, we're not anywhere near there. But the theory is, when you start decentralizing that and giving that power to anybody that can reasonably get it. I'm not saying it's cheap enough that, it's not like a laptop for everybody with that little cheap laptop thing. But the point is, the more we're headed to that, power gets distributed around people that are, again, innovating, adding value. And I think humanity as a whole doesn't always look that way, but I think we really are, as a herd animal, like, we do want to contribute to one another. We do want to actually see all of us win. And I think there's way more abundance than the, zero sum game that we feel trapped in a lot. So I really love the fact that your commitment is that gets spread out and given to
Yeah.
people, not owned by a few entities.
Well, look, we also have a revenue share with our customers. So, we could try and be greedy hogs about this and come up with better business models to host these people, but we're not doing that purposely. I think,
Yeah,
when you go open source early on and, have that goodwill, your community gives it back to you in trust. I know that seems like a weird thing as a company to think about. Here's the morality on Wall Street, right? But a
yeah,
company earns the respect of their customer. And so if that's how I think as an entrepreneur. It's not a monologue, us selling a product. It's a
yeah,
dialogue. What does the customer need and how do we reciprocate? But it's not just in America. The grid problem is everywhere. And so, we're working with some companies in like Guatemala, for example. We're looking at Northern Africa where the grid systems are absolute crap.
yeah,
You can't put in a hyperscale data center. It's just, it
yeah.
can't support it. So how are those countries going to keep at pace?
Competitive. Yeah,
Talk about haves and have-nots. And
yeah,
when you do have an extreme have and have-nots, that causes warfare. That's what causes instability. That's what causes so our friends to the south and the like, I want to get them with smaller systems and starting to train and getting, the youth there thinking, oh, we can actually control this. We can actually have, and it's either we do it or the Chinese do it.
Yeah,
So again, it's a little bit of a race, not just in America versus China, but a global race. Who liberates AI early so that people can utilize it? 'Cause I feel
it
like
is.
it's very reminiscent to the early days of the internet. When Google was still kind of cool, and I don't mean to dog them, but there was the no asshole principle. It was like
Yeah,
the
yeah, yeah,
universal kind of thing. That maybe that's changed a little bit in their thinking, but I don't know. No, I still love the guys or whatever, but
yeah.
I'm not gonna say anything bad against them. But having that open opportunity, because AI has been kind of like really terrible PR, kind of like it's all going to take your jobs and the world's going to end in 10 years or whatever. We're going to hit AGI and we're all going to be irrelevant. That's terrible PR for AI
Yeah.
and one dystopic vision of it. I don't have that vision at all. It's like it
No.
can be used and leveraged for individual consumption and use, and you can empower individuals out of this. I don't.
Well, yeah, I mean, I look at it like the power saw, right? That didn't put carpenters out of work. It just made them
Right.
work more effectively, right? Like, so I'm totally with you. Is it possible? Sure. Maybe when they hit sentience, we'll find out if the hunter killers come after us all because we're just a scourge on the earth. Who knows? But I
Right.
really do think it's going to do is enable us to continue to develop as a human race and provide us, the ability to do things we otherwise wouldn't be able to do and a lot faster.
Yeah. Yeah.
So talk to
Totally.
me, in the future, like let's cast this net out 2 to 3 years. What do you think success looks like? Like if you guys were to have your magic wand, what would be the ideal scenario?
Well, I mean, obviously distribution takes time, so I'm trying to be reasonable about it. If
Yeah,
I had a magic wand, I'd get Electra into almost everyone's homes, kind of take the pressure off the grid, get people engaged with it so they're actually, step number one, actually, the app is pretty cool. You look at it and it shows you how much power your house has and then how much you can either store or sell it for. So we're gamifying electricity right off the bat. So
that's great.
expanding from that, what else can I do with this electricity, and start getting it into people's minds that their energy is their asset. If I can get that in 2 years, then we've changed the way people think about electricity. Right now, it's still, I'm a ratepayer, this is a monopoly, but they maybe don't even understand that it's a monopoly. The only thing they think vis-a-vis their energy bill right now is that maybe I can lower it with a little bit of an investment in solar. I mean, that's like the limits. That's our extent of thinking. No, we want to get them not thinking about that at all and thinking about how do I monetize this energy. So if we can do that in the next 2 to 3 years, I feel like we've won everything already. But if we can be of service in other areas, we are talking to companies and governments and thinking about like how can we privatize or like make private clouds or private military clouds or things that enable and make our communities safer, more resilient, more redundant. In Texas, for example, 2021, ERCOT almost went down from a natural disaster. It could be a variety of things, but if the grid actually went down, if that line blew, they were 4 minutes away from a complete failure. If all of those transformers blew, what would those communities do? If we can actually start providing the plans and get installed capacity for those communities, then I feel like we're saving lives at the same time. So, that's what I hope we start the process of doing. Hopefully we can be MySpace and Facebook at the same time.
Mhm.
MySpace brought kind of social media to attention, but it was creepy. But Facebook really, took it to the moon. But we hope to be kind of, both of those things.
Great. So tell me, how do the guys, I mean, is the first step getting the app? Would that be if somebody's listening to this and is like, hey, I want to get on the electric train, what do they do?
Give us a call, buy a system, put it in your house. We're getting it better and better. I mean, obviously we're still in startup mode. So some of these installations, it's, we have early adopters. But yeah, basically you just call us. But you can select from several different machines, which are open source. We actually are not building our own Lektra devices yet, but we're third-party resellers. We add our software and then put them on. There's so much consumer choice that we're not
Yeah.
building our own device yet. Probably in 2, 3 years, we'll create a device, because our patents cover all distributed energy as it relates to powering not just GPUs, but TPUs, DPUs, and 16 other types of processing cards. So
Okay.
we'll make a version of it where you can interswap, like Nintendo cartridges, different types
Yeah.
of chips, utilize them for different things, machine learning, et cetera. Um,
And
so
what
yeah,
is that? Go to their website to get the number. How do they want to
yep.
contact?
Go to Lektra, go to Lektra.com, click through,
Right.
fill out the form, it will ship it to you within 2 weeks, and plug it into your house, and we'll get going. Industrial scale is a little different. Installations take a little longer. The chips,
Yeah.
also at NVIDIA, there's a shorter supply of chips, so it takes about 30 to 45 days to get it installed at like a university or a company or corporation.
To microgrids and maybe even a little morality. You've lived multiple chapters already. What you're building touches so many intersecting futures: energy, AI, the climate, personal agency. I really thanks again for sharing the ride, and hope to hear what it's going. We're going to try and do some recaps in 5, 6 months and kind of see where you're at and see where Lektra's at. Really appreciate it,
Awesome,
Mark.
man. No, I appreciate your time.